The hardest game I've ever had to explain is Game Dev Story. The second I picked that game up, I was hooked. Up until this point, the only time I'd actually sat and played games on my phone at my house was with Battleheart, but explaining that phenomenon was fairly simple. There is something about Game Dev Story that cements you to the game. I kept telling myself, I'm only going to build one more console, and 2 console generations later, I'm missing 4 hours of sleep. Dungeon Village, by Kairosoft, the makers of Game Dev Story, has a very similar effect. I've been playing Dungeon Village all week, and never have I been so excited to write a review. After today, I get to sleep again. At least that's what I'm telling myself until I start my second campaign. In Dungeon Village, you act as the mayor of a burgeoning village where adventurers come to explore the outer-lying region. During this time, they will discover various dungeons in the field and take on various monsters and dragons that surround the village. To aid the adventurers, you can buy them weapons and armor and create various shops for them to utilize. It's not all one-sided. In fact, you have a symbiotic relationship with the adventurers of the village. Every penny the villagers spend at the shops is gracefully placed in your pocket, which in turn is used to upgrade the village, shops, and adventurers. The game feels like a mix of SimCity, Farmville, and Diablo, but all 3 are heavily bastardized. In addition to weapons and armor, each adventurer has a class type. The first couple will be simple things like farmers or merchants, but over time, new types of adventurers will move into the village. Once an adventurer reaches level 10, the other adventurers are able to switch their class to that new class. Upon changing classes, the adventurer gets a stats adjustment and then starts back over at level 1. The advantage of this is that each set of 10 levels the adventurer does makes them that much more powerful. Plus, there is a class bonus for every job type that the adventurer finished. Is this starting to sound complex? Well, it is. One of the things that Kairosoft has improved in its games since Game Dev Story is the learning curve. When you start a new game, all the options and abilities are available, but they are revealed and explained to the player at a very gradual pace that isn't overbearing. As I was learning to play, there were a few moments of, oh, I wish I would have known that yesterday, which is unfortunate, but acceptable with a game this big. The game has the idea that you will do multiple playthroughs, which is completely fathomable. By the second go-around, you'll have all the intricacies of the gameplay and will crush your first score. The graphics for Dungeon Story follow that of Kairosoft's other games. This time, because you're viewing a larger plane of the game, everything is scaled down. All the different classes and characters have their own distinguishing features, and all the different types of monsters are unique rather than recolors. I did run into some issues telling some of the buildings apart due to their art direction, but since the interactions with most of the buildings are the same, it wasn't too much of an issue. What was an issue was the touch controls. Dungeon Village is an isometric game, which means that the game area is tilted diagonally like a diamond. In doing this, it makes 2-dimensional games seem 3-dimensional. The problem is that it creates a touchscreen nightmare. Placing buildings was the first problem I noticed. Getting an accurate read from my screen takes some getting used to, and even after many hours of play, it's still a little frustrating. If that weren't enough, selecting the various little adventurers to give them new presents and/or effects is difficult as well. The game requires a double tap to open a menu to give specific adventurers gifts. This is a problem because oftentimes adventurers can get stuck behind enemies or move too fast so you can't get that second click in. It is possible to navigate through the menu to accomplish the same objective, but it's not an elegant approach. The sound effects and music are typical for Kairosoft games. There is even some noticeable bleed over between the sounds found in Dungeon Village and the sounds found in Game Dev Story. One of the downsides of the music was the lack of variety. There are a few smaller tracks during things like award ceremonies, but the music during the regular parts of the game, while the town is thriving, remains the same throughout the game. This is in contrast to Kairosoft's other games like Game Dev Story, where you get separate music tracks each time you change locations, a total of 3 tracks. This makes the music seem a little bland overall, but the existing track is fairly well done. Dungeon Village is a solid title from Kairosoft. There are a few features that feel like they were experimenting and didn't quite execute right, but the end result was 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I'd recommend this game for anyone who wants a deeper game even if they aren't a traditional gamer type. The learning curve is a little steep at first, but once you get the hang of the mechanics, the experience is very rewarding. Pixelfreak.com is giving Dungeon Village 94 pixels out of 100.